It's the latest move from the rogue regime, and rogue is putting it mildly if this is true. North Korea executing several members of its nuclear negotiating team for their role in the failed second summit between President Trump and Kim Jong Un. At least that's the report from a South Korean newspaper. Fox News correspondent Benjamin Hall is in London with more detail.
This purge is a reminder not only of the murderous nature of the North Korean regime, but also of what a failure the Hanoi summit was to the North Koreans and to Kim Jong Un personally. The negotiators went with the intention of getting sanctions relief, but left with nothing. Senior envoy Kim Hyok-chol, who led the working-level negotiations at the Hanoi summit, was apparently executed at the Mirim airfield by a firing squad, along with 4 other officials, including a translator. Apparently, they had betrayed Kim Jong Un and spied for the US. But the purge went further. Kim Yong-chol, considered North Korea's foreign secretary, was also apparently sentenced to hard labor in one of the country's numerous labor camps. Chol was the man sent to hand-deliver a letter to President Trump and who met regularly with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. It's always hard to verify news out of North Korea, and this is unconfirmed. But the regime has executed people for political mistakes in the past, and the Hanoi summit was an embarrassing failure for Kim on the world stage. There remains growing concern that the diplomacy which has blossomed since early 2018 could be reversing. Since the Hanoi summit ended in failure, North Korea has again tested weapons and boosted its angry rhetoric towards America. It's unclear if there will be a third summit between President Trump and Kim Jong Un. Certainly the White House has said President Trump is open to one if denuclearization is the key talking point. But in the meantime, there is the G20 summit to be held in Japan at the end of June, where President Trump will meet with President Xi of China, and certainly North Korea will be high on the agenda there. Back to you.
Benjamin Hall in London, Melissa.
Joining us now to react is Bruce Klingner from the Heritage Foundation. He's also a former CIA deputy chief for Korea. First of all, do you think this report's accurate?
We really have to wait for more confirmation. As the report points out, there have been numerous times where similar reports prove to be incorrect and reportedly executed officials come back to work. And even those that are purged sometimes come back after 3 months at a re-education or a hard labor camp. But it certainly does seem that it will continue the impasse right now between the U.S. and North Korea over denuclearization talks.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, how did this report get out, in your opinion?
Well, apparently the reporter for the South Korean media is a North Korean defector who has sources in North Korea. And people have said he's reported reliably in the past and found things that proved later to be true when North Korea announced them. So it could very well be true, but given the times in the past where such reports were incorrect, we still need to be a bit in a wait-and-see mode.
Would Kim want this to get out there to show that he's, you know, super tough or whatever it is?
It could be, and there was some reports in North Korean media, which official media, which didn't say any names, but did emphasize that anti-state activities will be dealt with harshly, and that could be sort of the precursor to a formal announcement about the personnel changes.
How does this change what is going on between the U.S. and North Korea?
Well, in a way, it doesn't have an effect because North Korea was already refusing to talk with both Washington and Seoul. Seoul was even trying to provide humanitarian assistance, and North Korea was very dismissive. They said it was an insult. So the Special Envoy Steve Biegun, he's not able to get working level meetings with the North. And that's actually very typical not only of Mr. Biegun, but of previous envoys. And right now it seems North Korea wants to deal only with President Trump. And as we have this impasse, the clock is ticking. Kim Jong Un said that North Korea's patience will end at the end of the year when they will take stronger yet unspecified measures. A threat, but sort of relatively minor in the North Korean rhetoric.
Yeah. What would you think that President Trump should do from here? Acknowledge this, react? Does it change the calculation at all?
Well, I don't think he needs to address this, but in a broader sense, what we need to do is actually implement maximum pressure. That despite the claims of maximum pressure, there's still many things that the U.S. is pulling its punches on,
like
even
what?
in enforcing U.S. law. We saw the president in last year said there were 300 North Korean entities. These are entities violating U.S. law that he's not sanctioning. And recently he reversed the Treasury Department sanctioning of 2 Chinese companies violating UN resolutions.
But what about seizing that cargo ship? I mean, they were certainly furious about that, and that seemed pretty hostile on the president's part.
Right. Well, that was actually seized by Indonesia in April of last year. In June of last year, the U.S. put in the paperwork to have it legally transferred to the U.S. jurisdiction. So it's actually been in work for a year. That's enforcing U.S. law and UN resolutions, so we shouldn't turn it back. It's seizure of criminally related activity, so that's not something that's negotiable.
All right, Bruce Klingner, thank you.